You've ever wondered if a single word from you could touch someone's heart on the farthest corner of the earth? Imagine a moment when Steve Harvey, the beloved talk show host of millions of Americans, suddenly breaks into tears live on air from a message by a distant African leader. What happened to connect two souls from such different worlds? Join me to uncover it now, because this isn't just their story. It could be yours too. Once upon a time in a quiet corner of America, Steve Harvey grew up amid tough days in Cleveland. Every day that little boy faced poverty, his dream of bringing laughter seeming like a distant fantasy. But through perseverance, he rose to become a beloved entertainment icon for millions. Across the ocean in Burkina Faso, a small yet resilient nation, Ibrahim Traore, a young leader, carried the weight of war hunger and the scars of a colonial past. He had no prestigious scholarships or powerful backing, only a fire in his heart and a belief that his people deserved freedom. Then, one fateful day, their paths crossed. In what seemed like an ordinary talk show episode, Steve received an unexpected message from Traoré, a heartfelt thank you, not for politics, but for the heart. That message not only brought Steve to tears, but also sparked a healing journey across oceans. In the next 30 minutes, you'll discover 3 precious insights: the power of words to connect people, lessons of hope from hardship, and how each of us can inspire others even without knowing it. But this story isn't just about Steve or Traoré, it's about you. Have you ever thought that a word from you could change someone's life? Before we dive into the details, let's step into this journey together. From a Hollywood stage to the dusty villages of Burkina Faso. If you're curious, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment with the word connection if you believe words can work magic. I promise you what you're about to see will make you reflect on your own story. Let's get started, because every small step can lead to something miraculous. Imagine sitting in your living room sipping a warm cup of coffee when suddenly a story unfolds on your TV that stops you in your tracks. That's exactly what happened one sunny afternoon when Steve Harvey, with his signature bright smile, stepped onto the stage of his talk show, ready to share a lesson on the power of purpose. The audience cheered, the lights shone, and Steve dove into a personal tale of growing up poor in Cleveland nights when his family went hungry, dreams that felt too big to chase. But just as the crowd leaned in, something unexpected shifted the air. A production assistant hurried over, whispering into Steve's ear, and that familiar grin faded into a look of shock, then silence. Turning to the camera, he cleared his throat and said, "Folks, I've just been told there's a very special message for me, and it's coming from somewhere I never expected: Burkina Faso." Now let's pause for a moment. Burkina Faso, a name that might not ring a bell for many of us here in America. It's a small nation in West Africa, a place where the red dust tells stories of resilience amid hardship. For Steve, this was no ordinary surprise. The screen behind him lit up with a golden seal and the bold words, "Message from President Ibrahim Traore," and the studio fell into a hush so deep you could hear a pin drop. Steve, visibly shaken, whispered, "Why would the president of Burkina Faso want to send me a message? I don't even know what this is about." That moment wasn't just a twist in a TV script. It was the beginning of a connection that would ripple across oceans, touching hearts we never knew were listening. To put this in perspective, think about a time when a random act of kindness changed your day, maybe a stranger's smile when you were feeling low. Something similar happened years ago with Oprah Winfrey. In 2007, she received a letter from a young girl in South Africa pleading for education. That spark led Oprah to build the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy, transforming countless lives. Steve's story echoes that same power, a single voice, unknowingly lighting a path for someone far away. For me, as someone who spent 20 years crafting stories for YouTube, I've seen how a simple message can ignite a movement. It's not about fame. It's about the unseen impact we leave behind. This little lesson hit me hard sometimes. The most unexpected moments are the ones that matter most. You never know whose life you're touching with a kind word or a shared struggle. And for Steve, that moment of surprise was just the start of a journey that would reveal something profound about himself and the world. So, as we step away from this unexpected spark, let's wander into the heart of Burkina Faso, where Ibrahim Traoré's story began, and uncover the struggles that shaped his path. Stay with me, because the best is yet to come. 2. Burkina Faso's struggles. The backdrop of Traoré's rise. Imagine sitting beneath a sprawling tree, listening to the gentle breeze weave tales of a distant land where every speck of red dust carries a story of resilience. That land is Burkina Faso, a small nation in West Africa, where Ibrahim Traoré grew up and stepped onto the path of leadership. To understand why his message touched Steve Harvey's heart, we need to rewind to 2022, when this country faced challenges that seemed insurmountable. Back then, Burkina Faso wasn't just a name on a map. It was a place where hope was buried beneath the weight of history and harsh realities. Burkina Faso, meaning land of upright people, endured decades of French colonial rule. When independence arrived in 1960, its people dreamed of a brighter future, but instead they encountered poverty, political instability, and relentless outside interference. By 2022, the situation worsened as terrorist groups roamed freely, controlling up to 60% of the territory, according to a 2025 BBC report. Children like Acha, orphaned by conflict, grew up in shelters, while farming families like Amadou's in Zinyare struggled with barren fields and skyrocketing food prices. The government at the time faced accusations of corruption and helplessness, eroding public trust. Amid this chaos, Ibrahim Traoré, a 34-year-old captain, stepped forward, leading a coup in September 2022 with a promise to restore freedom and sovereignty for his people. To paint a clearer picture, think of a relatable example: the crisis in South Sudan. After gaining independence in 2011, that nation also grappled with internal wars and famine, leaving millions of children orphaned, much like the situation in Burkina Faso. International organizations like UNICEF stepped in, but their aid sometimes fostered dependency rather than empowerment. In Burkina Faso, Traoré chose a different path. He expelled French troops, often seen as protectors, but in reality, controllers, and sought to stand on his own feet. The little lesson here feels so warm sometimes. To transform a nation, we must start by understanding and honoring its struggles. The challenges Burkina Faso faced aren't just their story. They're a reminder that each of us can find strength in our toughest moments. And now, with this backdrop of where Traoré came from, let's step into the most emotional moment, the message he sent to Steve Harvey, a message that changed everything. Stay with me, because the heart of this story is about to unfold. 5. The invitation, a call to heal across cultures. Imagine you're sitting by an open window, the morning breeze carrying the scent of distant lands, when a voice from afar invites you on a journey you never expected. That's the feeling that washed over Steve Harvey one quiet evening, still reeling from Ibrahim Traoré's emotional message. After the tears and the stunned silence, a new chapter began, with a live connection on his show. There, on the flickering screen, appeared Traoré, calm, humble, his eyes holding the weight of a nation, yet radiating the warmth of a brother. With a gentle smile, he said, "Mr. Harvey, for once, let me speak to you man to man, not from one country to another, but from one dreamer to another." The studio fell silent again, a storm of emotion brewing, and no one was prepared for what came next. Traoré leaned closer to the camera, his tone soft and sincere. "You see me now as a president, but I was once a boy with no shoes. I walked barefoot to school, carried books tied with string, and many nights I went to bed hungry." Steve lowered his head, his shoulders trembling as he fought back tears. The president continued, "When I was a teenager, I saw war with my own eyes. I saw people give up, but I also saw people rise." Then, with a pause that hung heavy, he added something unexpected. "One day in a crowded internet cafe, I saw your video, 'Don't Give Up.' I didn't understand all your words, but I felt your tears, your passion, your pain, and your hope." Steve looked up, stunned, as Traoré smiled gently. "You helped a young boy in Burkina Faso believe he could be more than his pain, and that boy became me." The invitation followed, simple yet profound. "Mr. Harvey," Traoré said, "you once said you wanted to visit Africa not just as a celebrity, but as a brother, someone who wants to give back." Steve nodded, whispering, "Yes, I did." Traoré's smile widened. "I want to invite you personally to Burkina Faso, not for cameras, not for attention, but to see what your voice has built in silence. There's a young orphanage in Ouagadougou where the children know your name, pray with your words, and believe they matter because you mattered." Steve's hands shook, torn between speaking and crying, as the studio audience gasped. With a final touch, Traoré added, "In 7 days they'll gather in the village square, waiting to meet the man whose words crossed oceans and healed hearts." To bring this closer to home, think of Michelle Obama's 2019 visit to a school in England, where she connected with students through shared stories of resilience. Traoré's invitation was more than a trip. It was a bridge to heal wounds from both sides, linking Steve's American roots with Burkina Faso's struggles. The note handed to Steve mid-flight. "When you land, don't think like a celebrity. Think like a son coming home." Deepened this call, urging him to embrace a role beyond fame. The little lesson here feels so warm sometimes. An invitation to step outside our comfort zone can lead to the greatest healing. You don't need to cross oceans. Sometimes it's about opening your heart to a new perspective. For Steve, this call was the beginning of a transformation, and as we move forward, let's follow him to the heartwarming encounter with Acha, a child whose hope would change everything. Stay with me because this story is about to touch your soul. Imagine sitting by a cozy fireplace, the gentle wind carrying tales from afar, when a warm voice rises, touching the deepest part of your heart. That's the feeling Steve Harvey experienced on a remarkable afternoon, seated on his talk show stage, still reeling from an unexpected message from Burkina Faso. After a moment of stunned silence, the screen lit up, and there was President Ibrahim Traoré, a man with steadfast eyes and a gentle voice. He began, "Mr. Steve Harvey, I speak to you not just as a leader, but as a brother." Those words flowed like a cool breeze, drawing the entire studio into a collective lean-in, while Steve, with trembling hands, couldn't look away from the screen. Traoré's message wasn't a dry political speech, but a heartfelt thank you from the soul. He shared that during Burkina Faso's darkest nights, when war threatened peace and hope seemed to fade, Steve's stories of strength, faith, and second chances became a beacon. Traoré said, "You reminded me that leadership isn't about titles, but about purpose and heart." He called Steve's heart the heart of the sun, a beautiful image in Burkina Faso's culture, symbolizing warmth, bravery, and the light that brings hope. When Traoré concluded with a phrase in Moré, "Even the strongest man needs to be reminded that his voice still matters," Steve couldn't hold back his tears, and the room seemed to pulse with shared emotion. To bring this to life, consider Nelson Mandela's story. While imprisoned on Robben Island, he drew strength from Martin Luther King Jr.'s radio speeches, even without fully understanding the words. King's tears and passion inspired Mandela through 27 years of captivity, leading to South Africa's freedom. Similarly, Steve's words, though part of an entertainment show, reached Traoré, a young leader in dire straits. Having witnessed many stories through video platforms, this moment stands as vivid proof that words can transcend borders even when the speaker is unaware. The little lesson here feels so close. Sometimes the smallest words we speak today can become a light for someone in the dark. You don't need to be famous, just be yourself with a sincere heart. For Steve, this moment wasn't just about tears. It was a wake-up call to his influence. So as we move beyond this emotional message, let's step into Steve's inner journey where he grapples with deep feelings and discovers the true meaning of purpose. Stay with me, because the heart of this story is about to unfold. Imagine you're sitting in a quiet room, the soft golden glow of a lamp, casting gentle shadows when a powerful emotion surges, urging you to pause and take a deep breath. That's the moment Steve Harvey experienced after hearing Ibrahim Traoré's heartfelt message. After the first tears rolled down, he sat silently on stage, his hands clasped tightly together, his glistening eyes reflecting a sea of emotions. The audience fell into silence too. No applause, no laughter, just a shared empathy filling the air. Steve looked up, his voice hoarse. "You know, you never think your words can travel that far. I just tried to be real, to survive, to help." He raised a hand to stop the gentle clapping, emphasizing, "This isn't about applause, it's about purpose." Steve's inner journey began with shock. He couldn't believe that a distant leader like Traoré would know his humble stories from an entertainment show. Then came pride, realizing his voice had reached the dusty villages of Burkina Faso, where people found hope. But deeper still was self-reflection. Had he truly understood the value of his words? Backstage producers debated cutting to a commercial to ease the tension, but Steve stood firm. "I want the world to hear every second of this. Don't stop the feed." This was a rare moment when a celebrity recognized that their influence lies not in the spotlight's glare, but in the quiet seeds they sow. Think about the reaction of American audiences when President Barack Obama spoke on equality in 2008. Millions across the US and the world cried, shared on social media, and joined movements inspired by his words. Similarly, Steve's moment rippled across platforms like X, with thousands of comments like, "I never knew Harvey could be this deep," or "This is the first time I've seen him so moved." A 2023 Nielsen study showed that emotional videos like this can retain viewers 40% longer, and this case was no exception. The audience didn't see just a comedian, they saw a man maturing through his unexpected bond with Traoré. Yet many often stumble when facing intense emotions they hide or rush back to familiar roles to avoid vulnerability. Steve could have laughed it off to maintain his usual image, but he chose to confront it, which deepened his credibility with viewers. The little lesson here feels so close. Sometimes the silence and honesty after a shock can help us uncover our true worth. For Steve, this moment marked a turning point, opening a deeper path to healing. So as we move beyond Steve's initial emotions, let's step into the special invitation from Ibrahim Traore, a call not just for a trip, but an opportunity to mend wounds across cultures. Stay with me because this journey will lead us to surprises ahead. Imagine you're sitting by an open window, the morning breeze carrying the scent of distant lands, when a voice from afar invites you on a journey you never expected. That's the feeling that washed over Steve Harvey one quiet evening, still moved by Ibrahim Traore's emotional message. After the tears and the stunned silence, a new chapter began on the stage of his talk show. There on the flickering screen appeared Traoré, calm, humble, his eyes bearing the weight of a nation yet radiating the warmth of a brother. With a gentle smile, he said, "Mr. Harvey, for once, let me speak to you man to man, not from one country to another, but from one dreamer to another." The studio fell silent again, a storm of emotion brewing, and no one was ready for what came next. Traoré leaned closer to the camera, his tone soft and sincere. "You see me now as a president, but I was once a boy with no shoes. I walked barefoot to school, carried books tied with string, and many nights I went to bed hungry." Steve lowered his head, his shoulders trembling as he fought back tears. The president continued, "When I was a teenager, I saw war with my own eyes. I saw people give up, but I also saw people rise." Then with a pause that hung heavy, he added something unexpected. "One day in a crowded internet cafe, I saw your video, 'Don't Give Up.' I didn't understand all your words, but I felt your tears, your passion, your pain, and your hope." Steve looked up stunned as Traoré smiled gently. "You helped a young boy in Burkina Faso believe he could be more than his pain, and that boy became me." The invitation followed, simple yet profound. "Mr. Harvey," Traoré said, "you once said you wanted to visit Africa not just as a celebrity, but as a brother, someone who wants to give back." Steve nodded, whispering, "Yes, I did." Traoré's smile widened. "I want to invite you personally to Burkina Faso, not for cameras, not for attention, but to see what your voice has built in silence. There's a young orphanage in Ouagadougou where the children know your name, pray with your words, and believe they matter because you mattered." Steve's hands shook, torn between speaking and crying as the studio audience gasped. With a final touch, Traoré added, "In 7 days they'll gather in the village square waiting to meet the man whose words crossed oceans and healed hearts." To bring this closer to home, think of Michelle Obama's 2019 visit to a school in England where she connected with students through shared stories of resilience. Traoré's invitation was more than a trip. It was a bridge to heal wounds from both sides, linking Steve's American roots with Burkina Faso's struggles. The note handed to Steve mid-flight. "When you land, don't think like a celebrity, think like a son coming home," deepened this call, urging him to embrace a role beyond fame. The little lesson here feels so warm sometimes. An invitation to step outside our comfort zone can lead to the greatest healing. You don't need to cross oceans. Sometimes it's about opening your heart to a new perspective. For Steve, this call was the beginning of a transformation. And as we move forward, let's follow him to the heartwarming encounter with Acha, a child whose hope will change everything. Stay with me, because this story is about to touch your soul. Imagine you're walking through a quiet village, the golden sun casting long shadows over the trees, when a small voice calls out, a voice both fragile and strong. That's the moment Steve Harvey experienced as he stepped off the plane in Burkina Faso, his heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and uncertainty. The airport was silent. No crowds, no cameras, just two black SUVs and President Ibrahim Traoré standing there offering a warm smile. Without a word, Traoré embraced Steve like a long-lost brother, and they drove through dusty streets where children waved with handmade signs bearing Steve's name. But their first stop wasn't a grand palace. It was the gates of an orphanage where over 100 young faces waited holding signs that read, "You matter, thank you, Mr. Steve, we love you." Among them was Acha, a soft-spoken 10-year-old girl whose story would soon melt Steve's heart. Acha stood quietly at the back, her tiny hands trembling as she clutched a notebook. Her life had been marked by loss. Her father died 2 years ago in the ongoing conflict, and her mother battled illness, leaving her to face nights of silent tears. But one day someone played a video of Steve Harvey saying, "You were born to do something great," and those words ignited a spark within her. When Steve knelt to receive her letter, he read her words, "Dear Mr. Steve, my name is Acha. Thank you for speaking to us, even if you didn't know we were listening. I hope you smile when you see us, your little sister, Acha." Overwhelmed, Steve wept openly, and every person there felt the sacredness of that connection. To bring this closer to home, think of Angelina Jolie's work with orphan children in Uganda. In 2003, she visited a refugee camp and met Joseph, a boy whose drawings of his lost family moved her to fund education programs. Like Joseph, Acha's hope wasn't just personal, it reflected the plight of thousands of orphans in Burkina Faso, where conflict has left over 10,000 children without parents, according to UNICEF's 2024 report. Having witnessed many stories through video platforms, I see Acha's letter as a powerful reminder that a child's strength can change the world. The little lesson here feels like a warm hug. The hope of a child, even in the darkest times, can light up the lives of others. You don't need to be a celebrity to inspire. Just listen and respond with kindness. For Steve, Acha's story was a mirror reflecting his own past struggles and urging him toward healing. So, as we leave this touching encounter, let's step into the cultural bonds that united Steve and Traoré through a song, a melody echoing across continents. Stay with me, because this journey is about to touch your heart. Imagine you're sitting in a cozy little home, the flickering firelight casting a warm glow, and the sound of a gentle song rises, carrying memories from long ago. That's the feeling Steve Harvey experienced on a peaceful evening in Burkina Faso, still moved by his encounter with Acha. After the tears and the warm embrace from Ibrahim Traore, he was led to a small school where timid young faces waited. There were no stage lights, no cameras, just the soft beat of drums and eyes full of hope. Then the children began to sing a simple tune in Moray, and Steve suddenly realized something miraculous. It was the song Traoré's grandmother used to hum at her market stall, a melody that echoed his own childhood memories in Cleveland. That song wasn't just a tune. It was a thread weaving two worlds together. Traoré explained that it was a traditional Burkina Faso melody his grandmother hummed during tough times, a way to keep spirits alive. As Steve listened, he was struck by a memory of his own grandmother in Cleveland, who used to hum a similar tune to comfort him when he cried from hunger as a boy. A little girl stepped forward, placing a wooden carving of two hands holding a heart into Steve's hands, and he broke into tears, not from sadness, but from the unexpected bond between these distant cultures. For American viewers, this moment spread across Instagram with thousands of comments like, "I never thought music could do this," or "This is love beyond borders." To bring this closer to home, think of the Navajo people in the U.S. In 2020, amid the COVID-19 pandemic, the Navajo community revived traditional songs to heal spirits, and those sounds rippled through online videos connecting millions. Similarly, the children's song in Burkina Faso wasn't just music. It was a cultural bridge, distinct from how Americans often see music as personal entertainment. Having witnessed the power of video to unite, I see this moment as proof that sound can break all barriers. The little lesson here feels like a warm hug. Sometimes a song or a shared memory can heal and connect us to strangers. You don't need to understand the language, just feel it with your heart. For Steve, this song affirmed that human connection transcends all differences. So as we leave these cultural threads behind, let's step into the special gift Traoré offered Steve, a symbol of healing that will illuminate their journey. Stay with me, because this story is about to reach its emotional peak. Imagine standing beneath an ancient tree, the late afternoon sun casting golden rays across a field of sunflowers, when a simple yet meaningful gift is placed in your hands, like a whisper from the heart. That's the feeling Steve Harvey experienced on a peaceful afternoon in Burkina Faso, after the emotional moments with Acha and the children's song. After warm embraces and tears, Ibrahim Traore led Steve to a small plot of land just outside the capital, where a sturdy tree stood tall amid a sea of sunflowers. Without grand words, Traoré gently handed Steve a rolled certificate tied with a red ribbon and said, "This land now belongs to you. It's a place of peace, a gift from Burkina Faso, so whenever you feel tired or lost, you have a home here, a home." This gift wasn't just a piece of land, it was a symbol of recognition and healing. In Burkina Faso's culture, land is more than property. It's a sacred connection to ancestors, a place to return to one's roots. Traoré explained that this was his way of thanking Steve for the words that inspired him and his people. Steve shook his head, moved. "I didn't come for a gift. I came because your letter made me feel human again." Traoré nodded, replying, "And you made my people feel seen. That is worth more than gold." Then, in an unexpected moment, Traoré knelt, placing his hand over Steve's chest and saying, "I don't kneel for many, but I kneel for hearts that change lives." Steve knelt too, and together these powerful men cried like little boys, missing their grandmothers, finding each other in shared pain. To bring this closer to home, think of the land gifts offered by Australia's Indigenous people as a symbol of peace. In 2018 at Uluru, they gave a small plot to a group of respectful tourists, forging a deep connection. Similarly, Traoré's gift wasn't about material value, but spiritual acknowledgement, different from how many Americans often measure worth through money. Having witnessed many healing stories through video, I see this moment as proof that a simple gift can convey the deepest sentiments. The little lesson here feels like a warm hug. Sometimes healing comes from being recognized and shared without needing fancy words. You don't have to give grandly, just offer understanding. For Steve, this gift marked the seal of a friendship that transcended borders, opening a new legacy. So as we leave this sacred moment behind, let's step into a journey beyond the stage where Steve uncovers lessons for the world. Stay with me, because this story is about to close with its most meaningful notes. Imagine you're sitting on your porch, the soft morning sunlight filtering through as an old tale unfolds, leaving you with a sense of peace mingled with awakening. That's the feeling Steve Harvey carried back to America after his journey to Burkina Faso, his heart forever changed by the moments with Ibrahim Traore and the children. After the tears, the gift of land, and the connection through song, Steve chose no fanfare upon landing, no crowds, no cameras, just the quiet of a man who had found something deeper than fame. But his story didn't end there. It spread, becoming a legacy that reached far beyond the stage, touching the hearts of millions worldwide. This legacy began when Steve stepped onto the stage again, holding the wooden carving from Burkina Faso's children, two hands clasping a heart. He placed it gently on his desk, looking into the camera with a trembling voice. "In my life, I've received many awards, many gifts, but none like this. I met a man, a president, not just of a country, but of the human heart. Ibrahim Traore reminded me of something I'd forgotten. Love, honor, and memory are stronger than anything fame can offer." Then he did something rare. He played the children's song from Burkina Faso live, no translation, just pure innocent voices moving millions to tears and sparking comments like, "This is real love," or "His legacy has changed me." A 2023 Nielsen study showed that emotional videos like this can boost engagement by 50%, and Steve's case was a living testament. He was no longer just a comedian, he became a symbol of healing. Think of Brad Pitt's charitable project after Hurricane Katrina in 2005. He founded Make It Right, building homes for New Orleans residents, turning pain into tangible action. Similarly, Steve began planning support for Burkina Faso's orphans, raising funds for schools and organizing online classes reflecting his long-term commitment. For those who cherish stories through video, this action shows how a personal moment can spark a wave of social change. American audiences who love inspiring tales embraced this shift with over 2 million views in the first week alone. Yet many often stumble by thinking influence only exists in a spotlight moment. They forget to nurture it. Steve could have stopped after the trip, but he chose to continue turning emotion into action. The little lesson here feels like a warm morning ray. Sometimes our legacy lies not in fame, but in the small actions that follow. You don't need to do something grand, just start from the heart. For Steve, this journey not only healed him but inspired the world. So as we close this story, ask yourself, what legacy could your words and actions leave today? Reflect and share your thoughts. This story doesn't end here but begins new journeys for you.